Oh, the chamber pictures?
Yeah, all this stuff going on, man. I feel like an orphan.
They're sending it to the chamber board.
Are you on the chamber?
Yeah, it's either chamber board members.
By the way, in the board?
Nobody wants me.
I'll let you have my spot.
Sure?
I'll let you have my spot.
All right, we got a minute and 45 seconds. Got a clicker. We got a slideshow tonight. You guys ready?
If you're not busy this time of year,
Did Leslie review those slides before?
I hope not.
Okay.
Oh, she did?
That photo's not supposed to be in there.
Really quick. I didn't read them.
I'm not going to either. Yeah, the slideshow for the trip is 58 slides, so there's some text on. I'm not going to read word for word the text on there, but it's available to the council if y'all want
I'll
it.
send it to y'all tomorrow.
And there's a couple of embedded movies in there that I'm not going to show tonight.
It's not the one where the guy wrecked on the scooter.
I left that one out. I don't want to embarrass the new
if you
employees.
think about Washington in the last 50, 60, 70 years has gotten bigger
Oh, yeah.
and bigger and bigger. Not, there's no management.
That's because they're unlimited tax dollars from the Congress. So
It used to be.
it's kind of easy to do that.
No, Zach's out tonight.
That's good. He was gonna have to.
Yeah, he was going to miss half the meeting.
Yeah, exactly.
Recuse himself. All right, 30 seconds. Hammer up the gavel. Upside down.
Every time.
You can't bang it upside down.
That's a good shot. Won't be long to that radar comes on.
I'll now call to order this meeting of the City of White House Council for today, December the 17th of 2024. It is 6 p.m. Ms. Hargis, will you please call the roll?
James Wansley.
Here.
Zach Briscoe. Francel Burns.
Here.
John Chambers.
Here.
Michael Lowe.
Here.
And Matt Lazarine.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Excellent. Will you please stand if you're able and join Matt Lazarine as he leads us in a word of prayer.
Dear Lord, thank you for bringing this great group of people together tonight. Thank you for watching over our great nation, our state, and our city. Please be with us all, protect us. Thank you for everything you do. Amen.
Amen.
Please join the council in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And the Texas flag. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state,
under God, one and indivisible.
Sounds excellent. Please be seated. All right, that brings us on to item D, presentations. We have a few employees to introduce tonight, starting with Aaron Martinez with Parks and Facilities. Mrs. Black.
Mayor and Council, as you all know, Aaron Martinez has joined our team as our Parks and Facilities Director. He comes to us with a great deal of experience. He is a certified Parks and Recreation professional and a certified arborist and is already doing a great job helping me with our construction project down at 109 East Main. And we are looking forward to our kickoff meeting with HAP to start our planning for the park over in the Shahan Ridge development later this week. So we're happy to have him on board. His wife Catherine is here with us tonight. He does have two boys, Landry and Rogers, and so we're excited to have Aaron as a part of our team.
Hello, Aaron, and welcome.
Speech.
I told him he didn't have to say anything.
He did say he's excited to be here in case
Yeah,
the audio
that's
didn't take that. And we also have some officers to introduce. We have Keyondra Johnson, Josh Green, and Bradley Goude. I knew I would mess that up. I'm sorry. All right, Chief, take it away, please.
So, Mayor and Council, I got these real short speeches. Actually, we got one that just got off and the other ones are on the street right now. And we got three. I mean, isn't that exciting?
Yeah, that's great.
Super excited about this. So, Officer Gould has served in the Army for 6 years. and he's got almost 4 years of law enforcement experience. He comes to us from Rusk PD, among a few other departments. And he said that when he ends up working, he enjoys spending time cooking and with his family. Officer Johnson, she goes by Kia. She's from Big Sandy, another local we have here. She worked in Chandler for about 18 months and says she likes to spend time with her family and likes to travel anytime that she gets to. And then Officer Green, a lifetime resident of Henderson. He has 12 years total experience with Rusk County, working in the jail and the sheriff's office. He's married, has 1 daughter and 2 sons. So this is our 3 renewals. Let them get a picture real quick up
Yeah.
here. Anybody else see it? Come on over here.
You want to be in the picture, Susan?
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
We'll let them get back in the stream.
All right, on behalf of the council, welcome to the City of White House Police. We really appreciate you joining us, and welcome to the family. All right, anything else on the subject of presentations? It's welcome to work, back to work. All right. Takes us down to item E, community interests. All right, here we have a couple of items. Mrs. Black.
Mayor and council, our renovations are ongoing at 109 East Main, and they have been doing a lot of work on the roofing, getting that prepared over the past week. So electrical, plumbing, mechanical rough-ins all still continue. Still on track for an end of June 2025 completion date right now. Of course, that's dependent on the weather. Right now, their focus is getting that building in the dry as much as they can so that they can continue work as we expect the weather to continue to be wet over the next couple of months. We will also, city offices, non-emergency city offices will be closed Christmas Eve and Christmas Day, as well as New Year's Day. And there will be some shifting to the trash pickup for Christmas week, I believe, but not for, maybe for New Year's week as well. We'll put that information out in our newsletter this Friday, make sure that's posted.
Excellent. Community interest, the Christmas on Main was amazing. I think it was a testament to the chamber, to the city staff, to all the organizations involved to kind of push through the weather that we had. And there was a thought to like, let's not continue, but they were like, no, it's Christmas, we gotta go, we gotta keep it going. I think the people that were along the streets during the parade kind of demonstrated that they were there for that. I'm glad that we were able to give them that experience. And man, those guys running the skating rink, they just stood out. They just stood out in the rain all day, uncovered out in the rain. They definitely won my support. You got to give it to those guys for just being troopers and sticking through that. That was great. So thanks to all the hard work and endurance that went into being out in that weather and still making that happen. And that goes for the vendors that were there, the parade, the people that joined us in the parade, and everybody that came out.
Because we only had a few cancellations on
Yeah,
the
we
parade.
did. So, yeah, great event. Thanks for making the most of what we could. It wound up being fantastic. Anything else on community interest? All right, that takes us down to public forum. Didn't receive any sign-ups for public forum. I didn't miss any.
Yes, sir.
All right, that takes us down to the consent agenda. There are 3 items on the consent agenda for your consideration. Number 1 is discussion, consideration, and action of ordinance 24-1217-01, 24 to 25, water, wastewater, garbage rates amendment. Discussion, consideration on action of a renewal of the interlocal agreement with Tyler Fire Department. And 3rd is the approval of minutes of the city council meeting for November the 19th. If anybody on council would like to see one of those items moved on to the regular meeting, entertain a motion for that. Otherwise, entertain a motion for approving the consent agenda as presented.
I'll make that motion to approve it as presented.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say no. All right, with that, we have an approved consent agenda. Moving down to item H, other action items, ordinances, resolutions, and public hearings. Number one is discussion, consideration, and action on the second amendment to the contract with solid waste collection / disposal with Allied Waste Systems Incorporated, DBI, Republic Services of Kilgore. And, yeah, Mrs. Black has taken this one. I see Gene Keenan has approached the podium to address us, our representative with Republic Services. So, Mrs. Black, take it away.
Mayor and council, the city of White House and Allied Waste Systems have worked together for solid waste services since 2015, and our current contract is set to expire at September 30th of 2025. Our current contract with them calls for regular annual 3% increases each year. In discussions with Mr. Keenan, and in looking at what the economy has done over the last 5 years, as you all are aware, the costs for goods and services has increased significantly more than 3% per year, and so they've indicated they need to change the structure of that contract with us. And Mr. Keenan is here to help answer any questions that you may have. In the draft agreement that was included in your packet, it does state that it would change to be based on the consumer price index for all urban consumers using the garbage and trash index of each year. I do think Mr. Keenan may have some other options for y'all to consider, and staff's happy to answer any questions you may have.
So I guess in looking at it, one of the questions I had was obviously, and I talked with Ms. Black about it some, is 3% is what we've been doing, and we're talking about going with the CPI, and kind of what that has been over, say, the last 10 years. And in doing that, I asked her to, kind of pull some numbers, see what that increase would look like. And I don't know if Ms. Black wants to kind of go over what our current rate is, if it was at 3%, if it went to the 4.2% for the year. But you're basically talking $1 a month. So $12 a year is basically what the cost would be. But I guess one of the questions I had is the possibility of maybe going with CPI, but maybe putting a cap on it, or other options along those lines. So, have y'all seen that in other agreements y'all working?
Yeah, they'll let me put a cap as long as I can put a floor.
Okay.
It's the only way to be fair about it, because it fluctuates so much at times. If it goes up to 6 and you got a cap at 5, and then the next year it goes to 2, and we have no protection on that, then we can't make up what has happened.
Right, the 2 benefits the city, but it didn't.
Right, it's been difficult over the past 4 years with the 18% inflation rate. It's gone up, but I was just lucky that I was able to move forward with this one without having to raise any rates, but which I've had to do in the last 2 years, a couple of times as much as 30%. But I mean, I was still successful with it because but I don't like doing that. I wanted to keep up with the times, and they'll let me do a 4%. They'll let me do one more percentage up, above the 3. If you're more comfortable with doing a flat percentage, it's easier to budget that way for you and for us. But I can do a flat 4, but I can't do any more flat 3s. That comes from corporate. But most everybody is using the garbage and trash index now. It's more in line with what we do. But if you want to do something different, let me know. I can always get it approved. There's some things I can do right here, but if it's too crazy, but those are the things that I can do. So I can say we can change that to, instead of a 3%, to go to a flat 4 every year, or we can do the garbage and trash and then cap it at 5, but also the floor has to be 3.
Floor would be 3.
Yeah, I think, so Leslie showed me this earlier, if you add up the last 10 years, it's pushing 4% is where the average is. That
Where the
explains why
average-
your 3% wasn't
Right.
keeping up.
Yeah,
And budgeting, I mean, we got a lot of variables in city budgets, so the more fixed numbers that we could get,
Sure.
as opposed to chasing a floor and a ceiling on a CPI.
right.
I
Because
think
you don't know until
Yeah, I think a solid number
it
is
comes
good.
out. Well, she wanted to be notified with the January one for the next, for the budgeting time. So it would always be the January garbage and trash index for the your October one, yeah, for the October rate adjustment. That would give you plenty of time to budget, but it's still unknown until January. It's going to be.
Because there have been years where it's been 7.5%.
Yeah, I
the
think
seat,
last year is 7.5. It's,
Was that the garbage and trash, or
Yeah,
just the,
it's
you
garbage
did,
and
you got
trash.
up to that high?
yeah.
So there have been years when, and there have been years where it's been, right
Yeah,
at 3 or below.
This past 5 years has been very unusual. The people who were on a flat CPI, I was having to give 10% price increases. And
Yeah.
I never thought I would have to do that.
Right.
That's what, I mean, you see a lot of stuff kind of moving towards this, accepting that prices increase regularly. We're trying to keep up with that, as opposed to every 5 years, your rate increases, and we have to kind of swallow that big chunk of a rate increase. So I think the slow, steady increase of price to reflect the cost of actually delivering that service is what I'm in favor of. I think that's good.
Okay.
So the only question I would have is, like, this index is probably a national index,
It
right?
is, it's national.
Are the local, costs, do they typically correspond to the national rating increases, or are we typically lower?
Well, there's not a garbage and trash or water sewer trash locally. There's a local CPI, Dallas Fort Worth.
Okay,
But I'm not allowed to use straight CPI anymore. It's too crazy, and it has things in there that has nothing to do with our business.
Right.
And I'm not allowed to use CPI anymore. Any contract I have, I'm having to change it to something else. So this is water, sewer, trash, and I've been encouraging cities to look at that for their own water rates annually, so they don't have to hire a consultant 20 years later and go up 30%, because they haven't each year, because that really upsets citizens. But it's a good guide as well to look at your own water rates, to adjust those incrementally instead of all at one time.
let me ask it a different way. Do your local costs tend to correlate strongly to the index, or?
Well, since we're a nationwide company in 41 states, we all are sorted together.
Yeah, I got you.
All of our purchasing is done by procurement. I have to buy things abroad and it upsets me to do that, because I wanted to do it locally every time, not just, every now and then. But I understand now, because we're a national company, that we have to do it for the greater good.
Well, I definitely say one thing, y'all's company does a great job. You're a great community partner, and y'all's service is great. Your hiring practices, the insurance y'all have on your trucks, like everything is great. So I definitely appreciate and value y'all's service.
Thank you.
That's for sure.
Yeah, I know what's out there, and I've been doing this 31 years, and you don't get that with the others. I got 2 new contracts this year from competitors.
I personally
So
just,
I would
I think y'all do a
look at a
tremendous
moving
job.
average.
Thank you.
That's still
Always
how
do.
you track.
It's not an easy job.
It's not.
It's a tough job.
It's getting more difficult to find people that'll do it.
Yep.
You can't do it from home.
Nope.
And in order to get those people, like 2 years ago, unbudgeted, we had to increase our wages just locally $465,000 to keep people. We weren't getting people to ride in trucks, and that hurt.
Yep.
And how long is the contract for?
5 years.
5 years.
So what was your point, Councilman?
Just typically when you track index, you don't wanna track them super closely, that's what gives you the bounces. So typically, if you're gonna track an index, I would do something like a moving average, like a 3-year moving average, and take your rate off that. So just another consideration, if we don't go for a fixed rate, base it on a moving average, so.
Okay. Could you restate the 2 options that,
Yeah, either a straight 4%, which now it's 3. It's been 3 for 10 years. Times have changed, and our trucks now cost $425,000 a piece. So it just costs more.
And your insurance
Tires, insurance
and
rates
those
have gone crazy. A lot of people don't realize garbage workers are in the top 5 most hazardous professions. We had a fatality last year. Somebody slammed into the back of the truck with a man standing there, cut him in 3 pieces. And it happens all across the nation. We have usually about 34 fatalities a year, not just us, our company, but the industry. But the other option was, we can do the, garbage and trash index, put a 5% cap, but put a 3% floor.
That puts us basically at 4.
Right.
Basically, yeah.
So I guess it just,
I think the simpler, probably this, and if you look,
It's the
like
4%.
to his point, if you look at a moving average, if you pull up that graph again, you'll see that it goes up and then down. And we're
Right.
basically on the first half of that up, and then it's going down a little bit. So I'd imagine that it's just gonna, flip and be the same.
I would definitely feel comfortable with the 4%.
And this will take effect in October.
October, right,
So this
we're
is
early, but for
11
budgeting
months.
purposes, we have to budget, and ours is humongous, and
Right.
yours is large as well, but it's good to be able to have this set and ready, how to set your budget.
And
Yeah.
then, Mayor and Council, you do have one other option. You could go out for bid and see if there are other companies or what the price would be. Staff's recommendation would be to negotiate an extension with Republic Services. We're happy with the services that we receive from Republic. We feel like our garbage rates are in line with what we see from neighboring communities and don't feel that there would be, a significant cost savings in going out for that. But I feel like I need to let you know that is an
Yeah.
option that you have, and that's one of the reasons why we have this discussion early, to provide that time should you choose to take that route. To give you an idea of the dollars and cents and the difference between 3% and 4%, so right now our rate for a regular household, single poly cart pickup with recycling when it's available is $24.82. A 4% increase would take that to $25.81. So it's $1.01 more per month. If we were still at 3%, if that were an option, it would be $25.56. The difference is 25 cents a month between 3 and 4% at our current rate.
I like to keep it simple, and I would also say, from my standpoint, I would not like to go out for bid with another company, because just in my experience, since I've been on council, Republic's always been a partner to the city. We especially see that during, natural, like storms and all that stuff.
Oh,
The level of service is fantastic, so I think at this time, I would feel comfortable making the recommendation at the 4%.
And it's not just that, they also do a lot of things on the side, as has been previously spoken. People that leave their carts on the street for 14 weeks at a time. They can tag them, they do a good job, and recycling will be coming back soon. So hang tough and support 100%.
It was unfortunate that it burned down, that place burned down.
Yeah.
And also, something White House has, a lot of other cities don't, is the landfill pass. That's a $60 value every month.
Right.
And quite a few people use it. You take a pickup truckload of stuff to the landfill for free, at no charge, as long as you have your water bill.
But y'all's company y'all do a great job, so that's for sure, that's not a
Well,
net.
it took me 15 years to get this contract, so that's why
Yes, sir,
I do try to spoil everybody.
you do a great job.
All right, any further discussion? Not, I'll entertain a motion.
So I would like to make a motion to approve the Second Amendment with the change in the language, I don't know if to 4%. And that'd be each year over the next 5 years versus going with the CPI, just a flat 4%.
I'll second that.
All right, a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no.
Thank you
That
very much.
motion
Thanks, Gene.
carries.
And I'll redraft the contract.
Thank you.
Thank you,
very
Gene.
much.
Thank you, Gene.
Appreciate you. All right, that moves us down to item H2, discussion, consideration, and action on approving an interlocal agreement for computer support services with the city of Tyler. Mrs. Black.
Mayor and Council, we have contracted with the City of Tyler for IT services since 2018. As a part of our annual review with them, as well as preparing for the completion of City Center down at 109 East Main, along with the addition of redundant fiber services that you all had previously discussed and approved, City of Tyler has prepared the contract that was included in your packet. It should be noted that the 2024-2025 budget includes just over $200,000 for IT services. What is in your packet is for just over $265,000. That difference is attributable to a couple of different things. One, City of Tyler was still finalizing some of their agreements while we were in our budget process. Two, it accounts for new equipment that will need to be added at City Center down at 109 East Main. Those are the two main reasons for the differences in the budgeted amount. Did I misspeak, Councilmember Chu? Do I have different amounts?
No.
Okay. And so those terms are outlined in your packet in the agreement, and staff's happy to answer any questions that you may have.
It's gonna be a considerable more amount of IT to be used down 109 in the other building.
I wouldn't say considerable compared to what we have here at City Hall. I mean, when you think about the amount of videos that our police officers have, I mean, the amount of equipment and things that we have at City Hall, it is an addition, but I wouldn't say it's a considerable addition compared to what we have here.
And not only that, but going this route saves us money. So, I mean, that's the bonus. It's cheaper to do it this way.
Ms. Lusk and I were talking earlier today, it would take probably a minimum of 3 staff members to really capably provide for the safety and security of our IT infrastructure within the city of White House. I don't think as an organization, it's prudent to just have that vested in one individual any longer.
Yeah, you need 3 people that make somewhere around 80 to 90 grand each. That's
Plus
the salary
benefits.
plus
That's salary
benefits, so probably 360K.
And office space.
And a lot of what you see, so the itemized stuff in here, this is equipment. I mean, a lot of it's equipment. It's amortized over a period. Some of it we've had for a while, right? Some of it we've
Right.
had since this contract began, is what we're paying for. The service in here, it includes a 5% increase on a subset of the budgetary items for the increased cost of safety and security. It's cybersecurity stuff, so their insurance has doubled every year for the last 3 years. I think Mr. Yasfani's trying to make up some of that in that, but we have a CPI consideration in this one as well. You'll see that as a part of that. I would love to hit a fixed number on that as well, so that we can budget for it. So, other than the itemized items all being valid, I suppose that's the case. Everything in there is accounted for, and it's stuff that we have. We have 59 servers, something like that. Which seems like a big number, but those are virtual machines. So that would be my feedback on it, is if we can get some kind of locked-in number. 4% sounds great. I mean, that worked for trash collection. So if we can get, I think that we can show our work to back up that, so that we can budget for this expense going forward.
We'll be happy to check with them, Mayor.
Do you see anything out of whack, Councilman Chambers?
I didn't know. So,
Anyone else?
So is that something we just need to readdress at the next meeting, or?
I would table this item, yes, sir.
Okay.
All right.
So I'll make a motion to table this for, and direct staff to negotiate further on that.
January meeting? All right, I have a motion to table this item.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. Motion's tabled. I feel like I need to hit the gavel whenever I table something.
Now the good stuff.
Yeah, now the good stuff. All right.
The good stuff.
Yeah, all right. So on December the 2nd, Leslie and I joined the East Texas Chamber delegation on a fly-in trip to Washington, D.C. So to get into what this is, there are several chambers in East Texas that come together and form a consensus on priorities from the business perspective. So these aren't necessarily community interest initiatives. They're not things they're not things outside of business. They're purely like, how can we improve economic development and owning a business and employing people here in East Texas in this chamber delegation. So several meetings lead up to that, and we wind up coming up with this list of priorities. We got the top 4 of the 17 we came up with, put them on this push card so that an elected official or their aide can look at it real quick, so that we can get their attention. And there's a QR code they can scan on the bottom that shows the all 17 of the priorities. And these were the top 4. So you gotta have a short list. If you want the attention of elected officials and their staff, these are basically, DC is run by 25-year-olds, and it's their staff. So you got to get their attention so that it can make it to the elected officials. So these are the 4 that we came up with. Number one was support reauthorization of the 2017 Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. A lot of that stuff's fallen off. That's the one that kind of hits everybody across the board. Tax brackets for everyone, pass-through funds for small businesses, child care credits, all that stuff was falling off. So we're like, this affects not only businesses, but people. Let's make that the most important thing we push. We need to get our infrastructure things through. So we've been trying to build Lake Columbia for a long time. The lake that starts in Jacksonville and comes pretty close up to Troop. We need expedited and transparent federal permitting and approval process for those infrastructure projects, whether it's a new lake, whether it's electric delivery, whether it's highways, whether it's train rails, everything. We need an expedited and transparent federal permitting approval process for that. The next one was education and workforce development. A lot of that lies in WIOA. That's a mechanism that's already funded at the federal level, gets passed down to the state level, as well as our career and technical education. That goes into public schools, brokerage schools, a lot of public schools, funds go through their CTEs, and adult education state grants. So we want to return to at least where we were in fiscal year 2001. I wanted that adjusted for inflation. The other delegates thought that was asking a little too much, but that's what we're pushing for, at least where it was in 2001. Healthcare and well-being. So we want to support initiatives to reduce copays, including prescription copays and insurance premiums, but we don't want to do it in such a way that would introduce price regulation. We want the free market to decide. Whatever the government might be doing to get in the way to cause prices to be higher, we want them to move out of the way. And we don't want to reduce provider options. Like if it's a lower price, but we can only get it from one source, it's not good enough. We want some fair market stuff going on here. So again, all 17 priorities can be found there. You can check them out. It's delegation summary. It included 50 members total, over 50 members, and then from these different chambers: Carthage, Kilgore, Lindale, Longview, Tyler, White Oak, and White House. We're all represented in this delegation. You can see we flew in on February the 2nd, and our first session was, December the 2nd. Our first session was December the 3rd. And you can see us on the left there walking to the U.S. Chamber building. It was a brisk walk in 20-something degree weather. So we were walking with a sense of purpose. And I was bundled up like that kid on the Christmas Story where I couldn't put my arms down. You can see me third there. So that's Miles McCrary, Tom Trimble, and me, White House people lead the delegation, heading to the Chamber building. And we came in through the back of the building there, as you'd expect. They brought us in through the back door. So with the session, and let me go back to this real quick. So each session on that day was led by a U.S. Chamber executive. So you'll see the vice president of this or the chief operations officer of this. And we had our 17 priorities. We wanted to line up U.S. Chamber executives to speak to us about those priorities. So day one was Tom Wick. He's a former parliamentarian, which is what Susan is. We ever have any question about Robert's Rules of Orders or procedure, Susan's our parliamentarian. This guy did it for a living across multiple different party leadership changes. This guy knows Robert's Rules of Order, that 400-page book like the back of his hand. But also he's the managing director of government affairs, so he's really got his ear on the ground when it comes to that. So he was saying that with the Republicans holding the Senate and the House and the executive, he expects to see their agenda move through pretty quick through budget reconciliation, which only requires 51 Senate votes. However, there's some stuff that people are wanting to do that requires 60. Probably not going to happen. There's not that big of a majority in the Senate. For the current lame duck session, we're going to see a continuing resolution. I think there's already talk about that now. Like a week has passed since we got back from this, so a lot of this inside stuff that we were getting there is outside stuff now. Issuing a continuing resolution for the budget would push it out until March. So there's going to be basically Republican leadership in all of Washington when they finally do the budget. And disaster recovery is also a big deal right now. That's led by House Leader Johnson out of Louisiana. And they want to get completion of the defense policy bill so that our State Department has clear direction on what our defense policies are. So in the new session, likely see border protection. It's kind of a big thing. Still trying to figure out what that's going to look like from the state level, federal level, partnerships on that. Budget reconciliation, like he said, the 2017 Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. and they're looking to complete all that by March of 2025. Everybody talks about the first 100 days, like the new leadership, the first 100 days in office can be the most effective. Things start getting kind of bogged down, and people start running for election again. So that seems March 25 is a good point for that first 100 days. Cabinet appointments, Treasury be a priority. I think that's already happened as well. National debt requires broader program evaluations. He's not a big believer in tariffs alone, but he does think that outsiders like Vivek and Alon are expected to bring effectiveness with DOE's, I forget what that acronym is.
Department of Government Efficiency.
Yeah. So it's brought up a lot, the dissolving Department of Education. He said it's been brought up before, been brought up several times, but it requires a 60 senator votes. So it's probably not something that's likely is going to happen. Probably stick around. All right, and this is John Basilisi. Got to learn how to introduce his name. And he is with the Vice President of Immigration Policy. So he was saying the current policies are being scaled back to 2020 or 2010 standards, including the removal of union provisions for the farm workers bill. Immigration has a lot to do with farm workers. There's a lot of commingling there. He has concerns about the leadership, specifically that the person that was the architect of the 2020 integration bill is now the Deputy Chief Staff of Policy, and the Assistant Secretary of the ETA is also a key concern of his. So there's a lot of opinions mixed in with their updates, but I just tried to capture everything. Visa scarcity is kind of a problem. People that get visas to work here. He was saying that they recently announced 64 visas, and they were super excited about it. It's like 64 visas is not very many visas for a country of hundreds of millions. And he thinks from economic and strategic needs that expanding immigrant labor is crucial for restoring manufacturing, onshoring everything that we want to onshore, and being competitive with China in AI development. We're bringing a lot of talent over from Taiwan and Korea and China to help develop our chip manufacturing factories that are coming in. So they need to be able to move here and work here easily. All right, Workforce Policy, Employment Policy Division. This is Mark Friedman. Let's move into what he covered. So we had some recent labor and wage proposals that face significant legal and regulatory hurdles, oversight mechanisms like the Congressional Review Act. They're going to play a critical role in kind of shaping these outcomes. The minimum salary exempt employees, there was an attempt to increase the federal minimum wage of a salaried employee. They qualified as a salaried employee. That's been ratcheted back. There was a case that kind of helped revert that back. And they're kind of starting over with what they were several years ago. The proposed increases he thinks they're not very likely to make it either, just because of legal challenges. That at this point, with the kind of shaky legal grounds that it's on, if you're an employer and you have salaried employees, you should probably consult legal counsel for compliance guidelines. And there's an ongoing war with what an independent contractor is, and this is being driven by Uber and Lyft. Yeah, there's some of these employees in places like Uber and Lyft that want to unionize, but you can't unionize if you're an independent contractor. So that's kind of what's pushing the argument back and forth. He said keep an eye on that. All right, part 2, OSHA regulations. So there's a walk-around ruling that allowed employees to designate union representatives to accompany OSHA inspectors. It's being rescinded. The critics label it as OSHA enforced trespassing, where they could pretty much come onto the property and walk around at any time they wanted without notification. So that's being rescinded. There were heat regulations that were proposing regulations for environments over 80 degrees Fahrenheit. They're unlikely to pass due to financial and regulatory burdens, particularly on, imagine what it would do to our police.
Can't wait today.
Fire department. Yeah. 80 degrees is, you can't even go outside.
That was 2 days ago in December.
Exactly. So that's something. And he talked about the Congressional Review Act again. It strengthens oversight by requiring federal agencies to report new rules to Congress and the General Accounting Office before implementation.
Good.
So there's accountability there. If you're imposing new regulations, how much will it cost is made transparent. Sorry, I'm taking too long on this. So Senior Vice President of Global Energy Institute, this is Christopher Goude. He's been around energy for a long time. Tom Trimble knew him. Mark, the guy from Longview that's a Tom Trimble in Longview, knew him. And he was a great speaker. So the session's underscoring the need for balanced and impactful policy development to address infrastructure, energy, and manufacturing challenge while fostering economic growth. Pretty bold statement. Permit reform. Permitting is old, it's outdated, it needs to be revisited and reformed across all industries, he said, not just energy. So his major legislation, this was kind of shocking. So 2021 Infrastructure and Jobs Act had allocated $1.2 trillion for infrastructure with $550 billion for new projects. So that was 2021. Expires in 2026. There's still $346 billion left in transportation because it takes so long because of all the restrictions and the permitting. And it was almost an exercise in seeing how hard it was to do something that even the federal government wanted to get done. They're having a hard time getting through it. So it's great to see that brought some attention to that. 2022 CHIPS and Science Act, domestic chip manufacturing, reduce reliance on Taiwan and enhance economic security. You'll see some of those coming up in Arizona. We have one built right outside of Austin. So even the small, like 6 nanometer chips manufacturing is starting to find its way on shores. That's great. And Inflation Reduction Act, focusing on prescription price controls, investment in energy and climate initiatives, prioritizing greenhouse gas reductions. So that's the major legislation that he is focused on. Part 2, energy tax credits, renewable energy tax credits will end this year. So that'll be the end of that. It's going to create kind of a flat competition for energy production. Previously, wind and solar had tax incentives, so they were basically building things at zero cost and able to put energy on the grid and make that money, and they're competing against oil, lignite, natural gas, things that actually cost money to build. So he's saying we'll see that competition kind of flatten after these things fall off. Data centers are huge. Data centers are what's powering AI. They're what's powering even Amazon, Netflix, Hulu, people that want to host and stream movies. Artificial intelligence are all coming from data centers. They're all going to need an energy. The energy providers that I talk to, they don't care where the electrons are coming from. They just need them. Wherever they can get them is fine.
There's not enough for that, but they're expecting the growth.
That's right.
Close.
Yeah, not even close. So he talked about grass tops versus grassroots. So grassroots, you hear individuals, they support an initiative. He referred to us as grass tops. You get a group of 50 people. They carry the influence of 7 or 8 different chambers that speak for the business communities and all those. He said grass tops are the way to go. You guys are doing it the way it needs to be done. Keep it up. Federal permitting. He stressed the critical role of streamlined permitting process for all industries when engaging with legislators. All right, number 5, Neil Bradley. He's the Chief Policy Officer of Strategic Advocacy. Now that's a lot, right? So he develops government affairs, political programs, business relations, and he shaped a lot of national discussions on numerous high-profile policy issues. So he gave us a worker shortage update. The labor shortage is narrowing. With 7.4 million jobs open, 7 million unemployed, equating about 94% availability for every 100 jobs. And in Texas, there are actually more workers than positions. Doing really well in Texas. Participation remains lower than pre-COVID levels, though. People are choosing to be unemployed, and there's a couple of factors for that. So during COVID, a lot of families were able to save money by just staying at home and not going out and doing things. So one member of the family just decided, I'm not going back. We have money in savings. You're making enough money. I'm not going back to work. The other side of that is people tried to go back to work, and childcare was so expensive that it just made more sense for them to stay home. So that was 2 big parts of it.
Or some people in the federal government just don't go to work, they work from home.
That's right.
It's gonna change.
So economic trends. He said social media income. In 2020, there were 2 million individuals that earned $100,000 or more through social media. This is what all of our kids are saying they're going to do when they grow up. They're going to be influencers. We have an aging population with Americans living longer. All baby boomers will reach retirement by 2030. I think a lot of them won't be able to afford to retire. They'll stay, or they'll just choose to work because they just want to work longer. We'll see what happens in 2030. This is another nod to WIOA. It'll be funding priority for job training and workforce development initiatives. This is great because this is one of our. If you scan this, one of our initiatives is that WIOA. No, it's one of the four. It's number 3. It's number 3 on there, so that's even better. So you're seeing things that we hold as a chamber delegation and a high priority for these guys as well. John Cornyn. So we went back to the Capitol building, and the flag was up, so that meant that a meeting was in session. They raised the flag up there when a meeting's in session, they lower it when it's not. So we had a hard time getting access to John Cornyn and Ted Cruz. But for Senator Cornyn, we did get his staffer, Courtney Young. She was awesome. So she expressed their current priorities, continuing resolution to fund the government through 2025, passage of the defense bill and the farm bill. And the next session, so government spending and the Doge caucus, which Senator Cornyn's actually going to be a part of that caucus. So we're going to have one of our senators that's going to have a seat at that table. If you have anything you want to reach out to him about, that'd be great. And then reauthorization of the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. So that's like the 5th or 6th person that spoke to that. That's great. Again, our number 1 priority. Again, he's not thinking that the Department of Education is going to be dissolved. Thinks it'll stick around. All right, then Senator Ted Cruz. So he's fresh off of his election. He had a pretty muddy fight with his opponent. So he's hyped up. He came in. He was glad to see us. He strolled in. And I didn't take any notes. See the red arrow above my head there? Most of the people that spoke to us that day stood behind that table. Ted Cruz stood in front of it. So I was like, I could have like reached up and just touched him. So I didn't want to sit there taking notes while he was talking. I just paid attention. But it was basically, thank you for your support. Thank you for, believing in him for another term. And his priorities echoed a lot of what the previous sessions of that day had echoed. So that was good to get face-to-face time with him.
Literally.
And then we saw the Capitol Christmas tree lighting. So this is on the west lawn of the Capitol. This Christmas tree is from a national forest in Alaska. Every year they get a different national forest or forest that they source the tree from. On its way down, it stops at different communities. They celebrate the tree on its way. The community makes ornaments for it. Those ornaments get packed up, and eventually they get put on the tree. So,
Did they have a light switch like we did?
I didn't get there to see the lighting of it, so I'm not sure. There was a countdown, somebody lit it, but I don't think they had a cool light switch. Yeah, they probably had some kind of fog.
Work on that next year.
So that was great. And then at 9:30, we met up with Congressman Moran, who is
Only the brave, Matt.
Oh, yeah.
It
This is
was-
what I want to hear.
28 degrees outside. So the tradition with this trip is that we meet up. We're usually meeting up sometime in September, like it's too hot. This time, not so much. So we met up at the Washington Monument, and we went on a nighttime monument tour of DC.
On scooter.
On scooters.
This is the scooter gang. No, we're a club. We're not a gang, Chief. We're a scooter club, and we went around to the different monuments. We went over and saw the Korean monument,
Or the
Korean War
99
monument,
percenters.
the Martin Luther King monument. And these monuments, if you've seen them during the day, seeing them at night is just way different. They're lit up. They're beautiful. It's super quiet. This is the Jefferson Memorial, where you can see the Washington Monument through that. So this is about 11 o'clock at night, and we actually got in trouble for singing Amazing Grace in the Jefferson Memorial because
Imagine that.
well, it says quiet, please, somber place. It's a memorial, right?
Yeah.
But we thought it's 11 o'clock at night. We had no idea there was a security guard behind one of those poles, so we got in trouble for that. So Congressman got in trouble a couple times actually. Enough people to know who he was. But that was great. Built a lot of memories. It was a great trip. So the next day was sessions were held in the Library of Congress in the members' room in the Jefferson Building. This room was amazing. It's probably the oldest room I've ever been in. Everything is sculpted. All the wood is sculpted. All the ceilings are painted. Everywhere that would be, like tile or whatever is actually marble. It's amazing. And it was the people that came in and spoke was like, how did y'all get this room? Because there are people in Washington and they kept asking us how we got access to that room. So it's something that Congressman Moran was able to do for us. So it started off with Congressman Moran opened the day with remarks. He is followed by sessions featuring speakers from the Small Business and Entrepreneurship Council, Permitting Institute, Rail Passengers Association, Business Leaders United, the National Retail Federation, and the Office of the Governor of Texas, which we'll talk about here in a second. The only picture I got of Nathaniel Moran was me introducing him. So my role, first day Mark introduced everybody. The second day I introduced everyone. So this is me introducing Congressman Moran. And his opening remarks were amazing, like, thank you for your support, I'm here for you. Please subscribe to my Minuteman newsletter if you're not. It's a great newsletter. It kind of keeps you on board with what's going on in Washington and what he's fighting for. So our first session was Karen Kerrigan, Small Business and Entrepreneurship Council. She's been around for a long time, 28 years in that role, where she's been an advocate of entrepreneurship. And in January of 2024, she became a certified health and wellness coach. So she's kind of branching out. She mentioned the Prove It Act. Like, the House is set to pass this. It's an act that says, you think that this is going to have the impact that you say it is, prove it. To make sure that rulemaking and the impact on small businesses are known. That actually passed. That passed while we were, I think our fourth day, we were flying out, that passed. She addressed some overtime rules, FLSA, some recent findings have been rolled back, maintaining exemptions for lower wage employees, to kind of shift it back under the Fair Labor and Standards Act. And she, again, mentioned the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, stuff to expire in 2025. Seems to be a big piece of legislation on everybody's radar. So this is not Karen Kerrigan. It's Alex Hargott.
That doesn't look like Karen at all.
I got that wrong. So this guy loves permitting, but only in a way to hate it. Like, he loves knowing it and learning it so that he can get rid of it. So he actually created the Permitting Institute in 2021. It's a nonprofit, and he says he sets the bar for nonprofits. They lose so much money every year that it's hard to find a profit less than his nonprofit is making. But he does a lot of great work for Washington. He was great to hear speak. I got a couple of texts while he was speaking, and it's like, how do I work for this guy? Or can we bring this guy to Tyler to speak to us? He's in favor of a permitting dashboard, put that transparency out there about where things are in the permitting process and what's required. It also kind of show how much work is required, so that would create policy reform. We have outdated environment laws he wants reviewed, lengthy project approval processes, deter private investment. So a lot of the big infrastructure projects that happen are public-private partnerships. They come together. That's a great way to do it. That gets tax dollars commingled with private investors, but they're having a real hard time talking investors into doing that because it's such a long lead time. As an investor, you have to leave your money out there for 6 years before you see a return on it. And then at the end of that 6 years, as it notes in here, there's another 6 years where you could get sued. The project can get sued by anybody. So the project starts, 6 years later it ends. 6 years later is the last time you get sued for it. And you would think that it's, environmental groups that would do the suing. And that's some of it, like 30%. But he's like, a lot of it is neighbors, and believe it or not, competitors. They'll go through a shell corporation and sue you because they have a competitive advantage and want to slow you down. So that's the kind of stuff that he wants to get rid of. His outlook is that comprehensive legislative changes are required to improve decision-making timelines, but significant reform appears unlikely without focused and sustained effort. He doesn't see the level of momentum that he wants to see in Washington to get it done. He's asking for our help. All right, the Rail Passengers Association.
All right.
Yeah, now we're talking.
Yeah, buddy.
So this guy provided us with a slide deck, and there's a lot of information in that slide deck. But he pretty much went into, from a national perspective, what they're doing with the rails. He had issues, again, with how much of that money, of the infrastructure funds, were actually being put to use, and his frustrations with that. He did say the I-20 rail corridor is among the top 5 priority projects, and it has significant momentum, so that was great to hear. And that Amtrak has requested funding for the project through the Infrastructure Investments and Jobs Act, but there is a concern that the funding may not be secured before the change in administration. That was that funding ended in 2026. So we need to make sure that we're still pushing our legislators to get those funds allocated, at least allocated, so that they don't fall off the table. Business Leaders United, Jeffrey Connor Naylor. He's with Blue. So he focuses on addressing the nation's skills gap. So this guy's all workforce training, employee preparation. That's his big thing. So again, he's under the WIOA, which is great for us. That's what we're pushing things through for Pell Grants, occupational certification programs, and increased funding. And he's really focused on enabling higher education institutes to offer short-term credential programs for specific skills. It's more trades development than 4-year degree plans. There's the Pell Grants will help definitely with the 4-year degrees, but he's really pushing towards skills and workforce development. All right, Edwin Agee, Government Relations, Workforce Development, National Retail Federation. I think that's what that is. All right, so he just kind of he reiterated overtime rules, FLSA, and TCJA. So a lot of people are focused on these same things. All right, we took a lunch break. Got to explore the Library of Congress. This is the room that you can walk in, and it's railed off immediately. You kind of stick your head in there and look around. This is what an office in the Library of Congress looks like. It's amazing.
You didn't find the Book of Secrets in there?
No, and they don't keep the Constitution in there anymore. National Treasure kind of brought too much attention to the Library of Congress, so they moved it. Oh, what did I do? Oh, nothing. Awesome. So you can go upstairs to the balcony and look down into the Library of Congress, and it's amazing. There's glass in front of you, but this looks like something you would see in Rome or England.
The Vatican,
Yeah, it's crazy how much attention to detail and art's gone into this thing. And then the ceilings are all painted. It's like Sistine Chapel.
It's amazing.
Stuff going on in the ceilings. And then we went down on the floor. You can actually walk around. You have to get a reader card to get access to the Library of Congress, which I did later. It's actually really easy to get a reader card and get access down there.
But there's a lot that y'all didn't get to see, isn't it?
Oh, and
I mean, there's underground stuff.
yeah, there's 4 floors of that building, and we were in one of the outside buildings as well. There's so much there. All right, so after lunch, we got a visit from Sean Mason, Deputy Director, Office of the Governor. I had no idea what this was. I was completely confused when I saw this as somebody that I had to introduce. So he's Austin native, born and raised, went to UT Tyler. He's got a bachelor's degree from Appalachian State, where he played baseball. So I said, come up here and close us out. It's our closing pitcher that day. So what the Office of the Governor does is it's kind of like a Texas embassy in D.C., where the staff is tasked with ensuring that the governor is up to date on anything happening in D.C. that relates to Texas, and make sure that the federal elected officials are aware of the governor's agenda. So it includes a director, a federal affairs section director from TxDOT, a governmental liaison from Texas Workforce Commission, a deputy director, which is who Sean was, and a legislative assistant. It's a pretty small staff, but it's neat.
Well, I didn't know they had one.
Yeah, every governor has one up there. So when hurricane relief happens in Louisiana, their
A deputy director,
their DC office is who's in contact and pushes that stuff down. So this is us as a group on day 2. We're missing a couple people, but almost all 50 people are there. And just another wall in that room that we were in. Just happens to be this immaculate painting at the end of it. It's crazy.
It's amazing.
All right, so after that, we went on a tour of the Capitol. And this is a view from the Speaker's balcony. The Speaker of the House has an office with a balcony access. We just happened to line up that we were able to go out there and check it out. You can see the National Christmas Tree, which was pictured earlier, and the Washington Monument on the other side of that. So one of the big benefits of being elected Speaker of the House is you get this balcony. So that motivates any of you guys. There's a Christmas tree just sitting in one of the hallways. I thought that was great. We got Sam Houston, Stephen F. Austin. There we go. And as a bonus, so on my last day there, I was super excited to hear that there's a museum in D.C. that has recreated the Oval Office scale model, not 1/8 scale, just 1-to-1 scale model. So this is when you first walk in. Each of those window panes shows is a screen that shows silhouettes of things that happen in the White House. You'll see JFK's kids running across there. You'll see somebody standing up there smoking a pipe. It's really cool. It's free to get in. You can go there whenever you want. It's called the People's House. It's 1700 Pennsylvania Avenue. It's right next to 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, which is the White House. They have one of the rooms. It's called the Red Room. It's an interactive room. So it's a room with 4 white walls. They got projectors overhead. They can transform this room into several of the rooms that are in the White House. One of them is the Red Room. You see my wife, she's right next to a button on the wall. You can see a white button on the wall. If you press that, then it's got a pop-up that gives you information about stuff in the red room. So if anybody ever asks, is it worth it to remodel an office here in White House and turn it into something for the Oval Office, just think about this if that ever comes up. So we're in the Oval Office, and Jalem is one of Congressman Moran's,
Staffers.
yeah, one of his lead staffers. We're sitting on the couch talking about foreign affairs. Actually, I think we were talking about we're going to eat for lunch, but use your own imagination there. That is the Resolute desk, so it's a perfect recreation of the Resolute desk. So the USS Resolute sank. Great Britain recovered it, made a desk out of the remains, and gave that as a gift to the U.S. I think in the
Queen
50s,
Victoria.
40s? Yeah, long time ago. Presidents choose what desk go in their office. Some choose a Resolute desk. Biden chose a Resolute desk. The Oval Office is set up, in the People's House is set up to represent the current president, however they have it set up. It's set up. So the Biden Bible is in there. The Resolute desk is in there. The couches that he chose, the rugs that he chose, it's all what's showing up in there. So I want to say thank you. This was a great opportunity for Mrs. Black and me to promote the city of White House and to build lasting relationships with the delegation that attended there, as well as the elected officials that were there, and those key members of the U.S. Chamber and the staffers that we met with the other elected officials as well. It was a privilege for us to experience these firsthand. I hope that I was able to push this out to you guys through the slideshow a little bit, and it was an honor to represent the city of White House in Washington, D.C. So thank you very much, Council, for allowing us to do that. Any questions on this presentation?
No, I definitely think this East Texas Chamber delegation is huge. It allows us, as a East Texas area, to really talk with congressmen and senators and kind of push stuff forward that's important to our area. So it's good to.
It lets them know that we're listening on the local level. I mean, you got Washington, you got Texas, then you got us, So we want rail service across the state of Louisiana all the way to Jackson, Mississippi. That's what I want to see. We've been working on it for 50 years.
You don't want to go any further?
So what? I didn't hear you.
He said you don't want to go any further.
Stop at Jackson?
Well, and then you go north.
Yeah. Yeah, and you'll see the pushing for those rails. That's something that's on the state priorities as well. So,
Spam calls.
yeah, spam calls is actually on the state priorities.
Ah, God.
That's gonna start at the state.
Yeah, so looks like a good trip.
Yeah, it was
job.
cold. I mean, I wish they could have warmed it up a little bit for us.
Did Miss Black ride the scooter? No.
I chickened out. It's a little too cold for me.
There has to be somebody sane. So there has to be somebody that would survive. I had to go get a steroid shot yesterday and a Z-Pack because I got just some crud
cold.
from doing that. Wow. My sacrifice. So again, thanks for that opportunity. All right, let's go over to item 4. Consider future agenda items. We have a couple here.
Mayor and council, we have 2 vacancies on our planning and zoning commission, and it is time. We've been working with the attorney firm that you all chose to do our home rule charter review. And so we will be pushing out applications for those processes.
Okay.
I plan to do that starting at the end of this week through the first of the year. To get those applications, we will also have the City of Tyler IT contract hopefully back for your January meeting. That's all I have for you right now.
Anybody want anything for Christmas to show up on this January agenda?
No, just hope the weather radar will come on.
It is in the works.
Yes.
Excellent. All right, so that takes us down to item I, administrative reports. We have some reports from staff here. Price inflation, oh my goodness.
Not again.
Certainly y'all aren't responsible for that.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I had her bring that up, so there we go.
Okay, wait. Not too quick. Let's see. Well, sales tax is hanging tough.
Yeah, we had a correction that went in place on the sales tax side of things,
Mhm.
right?
We did, and it's largely flat for this month again. I think we'll see that trend continue through this fiscal year.
A lot of people using Amazon.
Well, when they use Amazon,
We
we
still
still
get
get the
tax
sales
dollars.
tax dollars, so, but I think we'll see those collections overall for the year to be relatively flat compared to the prior fiscal year.
What am I looking at for property tax revenue?
It's gonna show 2025 just because it's the 2025 fiscal year, so their November's collections, again, we would expect to see a significant spike in December and January
Okay,
as
gotcha.
mortgage companies and taxpayers start
Yeah,
paying
yeah.
those.
I haven't mailed in mine yet, so.
That's why it's not here.
They give me till January, I'm gonna take it. Okay,
Well, it looks like water revenue's kicking up. Using the water for the pipeline. Glad to see those trucks using that hydrant.
yeah, out there making mud.
Yeah.
We're seeing it on the sewer side too, so it's probably not just the,
Are they flushing it down the drain?
probably not just the pipeline trucks.
Franchise fees?
Did we get everything, remember the franchise audit deal we were working on?
Mhm.
We, still in process or?
I know we're continuing to pay them the percentage based on our contract of whatever they found, you know, we have to pay them so long after they find it. I can't remember if they've done a thorough review of all the accounts, if they've completed that. Okay.
Yeah, I think it was
Still
gonna go
ongoing.
through 2025.
But that worked out pretty good. It's been a real good plus. Good.
All right.
You can see bank interest is down a little bit as we continue to spend some of those funds on 109 East Main, that's anticipated to continue.
Yep, that looks good.
So on residential permits, right on where they usually are for this time of year.
So on the code enforcement, I saw, legal signage was 86%. What are most of the signs?
I believe it was concentrated enforcement along Highway 110. Is that right, Susan?
Yes.
So again, I think for code enforcement, we're trying each month to focus on a particular
One area,
issue,
right.
and so for that month, it was on illegal signage in the right of way
Okay.
along Highway 110.
In most enforcement, is it just a warning and compliance, or is it?
Usually,
Cool.
99% is
Right.
compliance.
Cool.
Response times, and we always like those. Still at 4 minutes.
Oh, yeah, that's good.
Calls for service continue to outpace prior years.
Mm-hmm. Yep, that all looks good. Water consumption.
So our consumption was up
Mm-hmm.
slightly to prior years, but remember we did have that small rate increase as well that went into effect in October. So when you're looking at the revenue,
That would
that's
affect that.
part of the, partly attributed to the rate increase.
Looks good. Social media is growing a little bit. Good to see that Meals on Wheels still able to hit that number, somewhere between 500 and 600 meals. It's good. Congregate meals too, yeah. Excellent. All right, that's it. Any questions on the reports from staff? All right, you also have an income statement as part of the packet. Do you have any questions on the financial statement? Anybody, council, have questions on that? All right, that takes us down to item J, executive session. Pursuant to Chapter 551 Texas Government Code, the City Council reserves the right to convene into executive sessions from time to time as deemed necessary during this meeting. City Council may convene into executive session to discuss any or all of the following topics: pending or contemplating litigation, to seek the advice of the city attorney pursuant to Section 551.071, possible purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real estate pursuant to Section 551.072, personnel matter pursuant to Section 551.074, economic development negotiations pursuant to Section 551.087. Pursuant to Texas Government Code 551.074, the council will convene into executive session to discuss personnel matters regarding the city secretary / planning and zoning director. The time is now 7:09, and we will convene into executive session. We're gonna meet across the breezeway. You guys feel free to stick around. We'll be back. Ooh, I gave my hard candy. Terrific. You have to be adamant about it. Trust me.
Got a shoe? You good?
Finishing up my candy. I thought I had time. Got done quicker than I thought. All right, so the time is 7:18, and we will now convene into regular session. Any action out of executive session? No, no action. Okay, so that takes us to item L, adjourn. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion to adjourn.
I second the motion.
We have a motion and a second.
We were gonna stay here the rest of the night.
Well, I have TV to go.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, stay here. The time is 7:20, and we are adjourned.
Some more bum bum. Bum bum.
Be patient, be patient.
You want two for the road?
Oh, I'm good, thank you. I got some.
I did two last time.
Oh.
Yeah.